Thank you so much to Amy for that intro. As she kind of walks back to her seat. Hello, Amy. Thank you. And to Fabrizio for that video. Such an amazing story. The C function, finding his spouse, so cool. I don't know if you guys have been to a C function, but at MIT, it's a social function that you go to, kind of one of the big spaces there. So next up, we're going to move to our venture capital panel. As the organizers, we put together this panel with the expressed goal of making sure that we were showing the founders what it's like to sit on the other side of the table and become more connected to the people that they will be pitching to in larger check environments, so to speak. We're very privileged to have an incredible group of women here who represent leadership in their funds, and most of which have decision-making check writing abilities. Many of them also are currently looking for investments. So as the organizing group, we tried really hard to give you a group of people that understood some of those final decision moments and are also actively deploying capital. So this is that group of people that we are incredibly proud to host. It's my privilege to also introduce Laura, who's our moderator here in the green. Laura is a managing partner at Alumni Ventures, which invests capital from alumni from MIT and a lot of other schools. They're one of the most active funds in the country. Laura leads the Dartmouth and Harvard funds and created the Women's Fund, focusing on supporting female founders. Prior to being a VC, she was a 3-time startup CEO. I will also take a moment as her hype woman here to let you know that this is an amazing group of people to be able to invest capital into the Alumni Ventures system. You can do that through the female-focused funds, and then I think there's also somebody here from Castor Ventures.
There is. So Chris and Mira, there we go.
Right.
So Chris Claren and Mira Nair are part of the Castor team.
Awesome. So I'll hand it over to you, Laura.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Absolutely. This is such a treat. As Karen said, I run the Women's Fund at Alumni Ventures, and just to see the quality of the presentations, like, wow, this was a treat. So we also have a treat of these esteemed venture capitalists. I'm going to have them all introduce themselves, and then we have some questions to go through. And each one is going to kind of highlight their MIT connection, because I think that's important here. And also, since we have so many founders that pitched and also in the audience, to emphasize their stage and sector focus, so that afterwards you can do all that lovely networking that we're also good at and know where to zero in on. So our birthday girl. So the other thing we're going to do is it is a happy birthday time. We don't have to ask you what number, right? But please go ahead and get us started.
So I was at an event today and where the founder of Artemis Real Estate spoke, and she said, birthdays come and go, but anniversaries are earned. And I thought, oh, I really like that. That was a good birthday speech for me to remember. So, and the lesson was picking your partner is like one of the most important things you can ever do. And I totally agree. So my name is Stephanie Campbell. I'm the co-founder and general partner of the Artemis Fund Venture Fund. We lead seed rounds for female-founded and co-founded tech companies in the United States. We lead rounds, which means we are typically the first institutional investor in early stage deals. Our check size is $1 million to $1.5 million. And in addition to our check, we will bring co-investors to the table. So we believe it's our job to know the other investors that are building, that are investing in what you're building, so we can help expedite that funding process for female founders who typically have not had the same networks and access.
Love that. And your MIT connection?
My only MIT connection is that Peter is constantly sending me female-founded deals.
I love it. Go, Peter. Woo-hoo.
Hey, you guys. My name is Gabriella Garcia. I'm a deal partner at Felicis, where I specifically focus on leading seed and Series A's in deep tech and applied ML types of companies. So if anything's inherently scientific or nerdy or computational, it typically falls under my domain. Prior to this, I worked in tech. So I did do undergrad at MIT. I studied 2 and 6, which is mechanical engineering and computer science, and then spent my time as an engineer. So software at Facebook, mechanical engineer at Apple, then ended up joining and doing product at 2 different teams back at Facebook, at Google actually, and spent the last 2 years working at 2 Sigma Ventures. Really excited, to be here today, especially because it's Pi Day, which is a very auspicious day for most MIT grads. I mean, I remember, when I got in, my dad was bawling, and we actually have a video, and we like to watch it annually. So really excited to be here.
That is great, Gabby. That is so wonderful.
Cute.
I'm Victoria Grace. I'm founder of an early stage fund called COLLE Capital. We invest in early stage seed and pre-series A sweet spot, but we've done also as far as Series D and beyond. Digital health, fintech, and logistics are kind of our core verticals, although we are very opportunistic and we consider ourselves generalists. We like technical founders. We don't have a mandate to back female founders, but just by looking at our portfolio, nearly half of our founders fall into that bucket of it's minority, really, not just female led companies. And we really true partners to our portfolio companies. We help them with different rounds of financing. We bring customers to them. We really help to accelerate their growth rate. And my connection to MIT, one of our advisors is on MIT tech board or something like that. Otherwise, I'm just crashing this party.
Party, right?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Bishop. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of a fund called Black Opal Ventures. We are an early stage health tech fund. We like to call it hard tech healthcare is the kind of investments that we like to do. So healthcare companies that have a definite tech moat. My background has been almost 25 years in the healthcare sector as a physician, and then in the consulting world and the startup world. But I think I have a lot of MIT connections and a fun MIT story. So I was an undergrad at MIT, graduated in the late 1990s, and I co-founded my fund with my MIT sorority sister. And so two sorority sisters and a bunch of MIT girls were hiking in Switzerland in 2019, and we had this idea of perhaps bringing worlds together and investing just some of our own capital as we were kind of getting older and farther along in our careers, and ended up launching a fund in 2022. We are investing out of our first vehicle that invests in early stage, as I said, health tech companies, C to Series B companies. Our smallest check size is about 100,000 in very early phase companies, up to 2 million in later phase companies, and looking forward to the discussion, but also thrilled by the level of the caliber of the companies that were presented today.
Absolutely. All right, let's kick this off, keeping that upbeat note. And so our first question is bright spots that you see. Because 2023 was a little dark, not gonna lie. It was a tough funding year. And we turn the page, let's get to 2024. So I'm gonna start with Stephanie and go to Victoria on bright spots that you see in the funding environment for startups.
I think one of the biggest bright spots is that in 2023, women-led VCs raised $3.5 billion, which is $500,000 more than the year before. And that is without a single $1 billion fund. So you're definitely seeing more AUM in the hands of women and minorities. So that represented 86 firms closed last year, over 35 the year before. So women are making strides, and
that's awesome. Way to go.
Including Artemis and Black Opal both closed last year. And, you know, despite it being tough, I think women are incredibly resilient. And I'm over the narrative of, I had a reporter call me last week and I want to hear a juicy story about how hard it is to raise money as a female founder. Like, that narrative doesn't do us any good. I want to tell you about some founders that have overcome obstacles and that are kicking ass regardless. And I think that's the story that women need to hear, is that don't be discouraged. It's never been a better time to raise money. There's more people like us that are out there deploying. Last year, another stat, I know this is MIT data, I love data too. 417 women launched funds last year, despite the tough environment, a 15% increase. So we're undaunted by the challenge.
That is a great statistic. I love it. I'll give you another number for the women's fund that I run. We figured out at Alumni Ventures, we have 357 companies that were either founded, co-founded, or led by women over the last decade that we've been around. And every single one of those was chosen for the pure quality of the business, of the opportunity ahead. And it's 357 companies that are just amazing that we cannot wait to see sort of blossom. So there's a lot of good numbers out here. This was supposed to be a bright spots and not just numbers, but an MIT thing. What do you got for us, Victoria?
So I'm not going to give you statistics like that, but I think in general, it's the quality of companies that we're seeing is completely different. It's mentality of the founders, doesn't matter the background, doesn't matter where they come from, what school or whatnot. They have very different respect for capital and very different and really positive attitude towards venture capitalists. But I'm not going to lie, a lot of times we know when we go and listen to a pitch, the founder is really not loving the whole idea of having to talk to VCs to raise money. And now the tables kind of turn where you have a lot more respect, people willing to give you time to do diligence, willing to open their kimono, so to speak, and share sort of their vision and their path to, we even talk about unit economics. I mean, things like before people didn't even want to talk about. So I think the quality of teams, their approach is quite different. And I think you're going to have in these environments much healthier companies as a result of it. So I think overall it's very, very positive. We're also seeing a lot more minorities and women starting companies. So some just by the fact that they lost their job perhaps, or just a lot of tech companies have been downsizing. And so it gave them this energy and guts, so to speak, to go and actually execute on their dream and start a company and find the right partner and really go and realize this potential. So I think, the silver lining in this, in the environment we just came out of, where you can see a lot of innovation. And as we've seen, I've lived through the crash of 2000 and 2008, and you see some amazing companies born out of these environments. So I think this would be like one of the best vintages.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go to the next question. This is particularly appropriate for Tara, but we'll start with Gabby. So sisterly advice. So if your sister or your sorority sister were pitching right now in this environment, Gabby and then Tara, can you give us a little bit of advice you would give?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to preface that all of the women that pitched today absolutely kicked ass. I am so impressed by you guys, because usually you're pitching to 1 or 5 or 10 investors, and you guys had an audience of about 300 people. I know we're kind of blinded by lights here, so I'm sure you figured that out, but congratulations, you guys really did well. My feedback that I would give, I think falls across 2 pillars. One, never underestimate practice. When you're in a pitch with an investor, you essentially have 30 minutes to control the narrative, to sell yourself, to sell the company, to figure out exactly what types of questions they're going to come up with and have a very good response to that. And sometimes I see founders come in and they're like, oh, do you want to make this conversational? Do you want a pitch deck? To be honest, I do not care about pitch decks. Sometimes I'm a little bit more of a visual person, so I do like a demo. But at the end of the day, I want us to use 30 minutes, and I want you to convey yourself in the most comfortable manner why I should invest in that company. And so I cannot relay how important it is to practice, because what practice gives you, it gives you confidence and it makes you comfortable. And so within that, the second thing I would say is try to get a little bit more swagger, when you're walking in. I know sometimes, some investors can be scary. I'm definitely not scary. But overall, it's a very stressful process for founders themselves. And fundraising is not only about the numbers. Sometimes individuals need to gain a little bit more confidence to really find their true believers, because that's what it is at the end of the day. So I would say practice, and even if it's fake confidence, fake it, because that really sells to us as well. But I'm sure Tara has some really great feedback as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when I thought about this question, I think there's a sort of an underlying aspect of, if you were a female founder and you're pitching, is there something you need to do differently? Or is there something you have to do differently? And I guess my general advice is no. I think you have to think about, I think the things that we think about are, is this a massive market opportunity, a company that's going to have a massive impact, and as a result, massive returns? Do you have enough of a moat, and can you keep the competitors out? Do you have an ability to sell, and will this actually commercialize and go to market? Have you already demonstrated that? And who's doing this? Do you have a team that is able to execute? So I think the advice is, build a great company and build it the same way and better than someone of a different gender, right? That being said, I do think there are some unique challenges of being a woman that you may have to overcome, or you may have to address as you're pitching to VCs. The first is, networks are incredibly important. If I get a referral from another VC that I trust, I will take that referral very seriously. And one of the challenges as a female founder is that you have the same networks as all the guys who may be out with their fraternity brother, right? I have a network of sorority sisters that I can lean on, but it may be a very different network than what may be a typical venture capitalist. The number of Stephanie shared some amazing statistics about female-led funds. It's still a tiny minority of the assets under management in venture capital, and so as a result, your network just may be very different than what a male founder may have. The second is, we place a lot of emphasis and value on repeat entrepreneurs. We know that often successful repeat entrepreneurs know what it takes to actually get a company off the ground, get a company to exit. And one of the challenges is that there are fewer successfully exited female founders. And so you have to think about how you might overcome, if that's what a venture capitalist is thinking about what makes a team good, how are you going to overcome that? Can you demonstrate executive leadership in successful startup companies? Can you bring in people who have had successful exits? How do you build that team to maybe compensate for the fact that you may not be a repeat entrepreneur, because we know that the numbers are just what they are. And then the third area is, I do think there is a level of unconscious bias that still does exist as we listen to pitches, as we evaluate people. Gabby, I think, mentioned, come in with a swagger. I hate to tell people to act differently than what feels authentic to them, but I also think there is a level of confidence and sort of clarity that really brings value to the table if you're a woman pitching.
Fantastic advice. I'll invite Stephanie and Victoria. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think fake it until you make it. It works, I mean, we raise money ourselves for our funds, and if I come in and I talk like a lame duck and I don't know, don't have energy and don't have conviction in my thesis or my, or whatever, that's done, right? So you have to really bring it on, and every pitch is an opportunity.
Yeah, there's a great Eleanor Roosevelt quote. I don't know if you guys know this one. It's something to the effect of, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I've heard that one.
Exactly.
And it's basically the battle against the imposter syndrome. Just don't let yourself feel inferior. Don't give that consent, and you really will feel better in these conversations. Okay, so now we're going to have a little crystal ball time. So looking forward, technology-wise, what technology on the horizon gets you excited? We'll go to Victoria first, and then Gabby.
Well, I think everybody knows about generative AI. And I do think it's probably the biggest thing that will probably happen in my career. And I've been doing this for a long time, just been around for a long time. And it really will touch every single job, every single industry, every single vertical. And we're very excited about potential. So everything we're seeing right now has that element in it. We try to be very careful because 95% of stuff we see is just a GPT wrapper, or it's like a feature, it's not a product. So there's a lot of noise that you have to cut through to really figure out what is real and what has serious potential. On the healthcare side, we really love longevity stuff. It's super interesting. And again, I think AI is going to really accelerate some of that, some of those trends. Precision medicine, I really enjoyed that pitch today. Again, with the help of AI, you can really accelerate that. So I would say those are kind of the key things we look at, and also efficiencies. AI is going to allow founders to be able to build companies a lot faster and a lot cheaper. So it's just like amazing time to start companies actually, and being able to embrace all this innovation and not having to raise a ton of money and deliver something formidable. So we really like capital efficient stories. Our best outcomes have been companies that actually only raised 10, 15 million over the life cycle of the company. I mean, I get heartache when I hear my founder saying, oh yeah, we're going to get the $50 million, like next round. And you just think like, okay, we have to sell it for another billion now to be able to realize the return. So capital efficiency is something that I think AI will make accessible to founders.
As someone who focuses pretty exclusively, I would say, within deep tech and applied ML, obviously, my question or response is also going to be, I would say, within the AI frame. To make it a little bit different, one of the areas, people are talking a lot about LLMs or LCMs or visual components, et cetera. What I'm really quite excited about is a little bit on the other frame, which is diffusion models. So we've seen that traditionally happen, with sound, with music, with videos. I'm particularly excited about the applications of diffusion models, I would say, in terms of accelerating science. So we've seen a lot of growth specifically with large models for biology. So different protein folding, that's of course, done by Google DeepMind and a bunch of different organizations. I think some of the outbreaks that we're going to get in very, very nascent days, I would say, on the scientific front, but crossing over a variety of other scientific fields. We've seen material science discovery as an opportunity in terms of creating, more top of funnel. The problem there is actually, it's not really about how creative we are. It's actually about how we validate materials efficiently over time. I think there's also going to be applications within the climate domain. So I know we had a weather modeling startup here today. That's an area that I'm absolutely fascinated by. So I'd love to chat with you later. And so I think in general, the way that we're going to be approaching science is going to be changing within the coming decade. As we think about a lot of the cost improvement front, as we think about moving away from quantum, modeling, and hopefully doing a lot of these very expensive compression techniques or overall analysis in a shorter and more efficient time frame, I think is going to essentially bloom, how we're going to be discovering the natural world over coming years. And I think even within that, the way that we approach the way that we do science is going to be changing. I think there's always a blurring line between researchers and computer scientists. And as we think about how easy it is to learn how to code nowadays, I think it's going to empower a lot of people who are afraid about getting their hands dirty and maybe actually getting their hands dirty nowadays. So I'm really excited about the ways that things are changing.
I love it.
Laura, we have about 2 minutes if you want to do a lightning round.
Yeah, so quick lightning round for folks. This is favorite podcast or media source that you're getting some of your tech and idea insights right now. So we'll start with Tara and go to Stephanie, and then Gabby and Victoria can chime in. So go ahead, Tara.
So I am a very boring podcaster. I love ideas. If people have good ones to listen to, I probably listen to the daily and that's it. So I thought I love to read. And so there were 2 books I read this year that I think were just both eye-opening and almost historic too. So I read, the 2 books are, one is called Blood Money and the other is called Chip Wars. So Blood Money is a book about, that just tells a story of the biotech world. And I think what I took away from it was just the extent of uncertainty that happens in that space, but also the potential impact and the potential massive impact that these startup companies can have in truly transforming killer diseases and this massive impact on people. And then I love Chip Wars because it actually took me back to like the days, like, why is Silicon Valley called Silicon Valley? I mean, I literally was like, what is Silicon, right? And it was just really fascinating to kind of see, where we are now. We think of venture capital, we think of investing, and you think of this as like just part of the industry, but going back and hearing how these chip companies were developed and how difficult that was, and then how that spurred this entire industry of technology and investing to where we are now.
Great, Stephanie.
You saw me looking at my phone because I'm like, what podcast?
What's the name of that? Yeah. What's the media you love right now?
So today I was at another conference called SEO, and one of the panelists reminded me of this book, The 3-Minute Rule, on how to sell yourself and constantly be pitching. So how to really tell your story. So back to how to pitch better. That's a book that I love. And then the podcast that I listen to the most is one called Venture Unlocked, which is this group called Allocate, which is a fund of funds that allocates to emerging managers. I am super hungry for any knowledge on new VCs, new models, how they're operating, how they think about venture and allocating in the future. I don't think founders do enough of like listening to what's in the minds of VCs to like understand who your audience is and what they're looking for. So if you have a chance, Venture Unlocked is a really good podcast with some of the best VCs.
Great.
I like and
Well,
respect.
time-wise, I think we're probably wrapped at this point.
Yes.
Karen went? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you guys. This was great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, give it up for this panel. Incredible.